Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, folks. Welcome, welcome. Let me put on my headphones here, and we are about to get started in just a minute. Good to see you. Glad you could join us. Excellent. Let's do a quick sound check here. Can y'all tell me if you can hear me? Jump into the chat. Let me know if you can hear me. And in fact, far more interesting than whether or not you can hear me, jump into the chat here. Let me know kind of where you're from. Geography is always good to hear. And drop me a line or two about what you do. Always keen to hear where folks are coming from and what your particular context is. Who are you? What do you do? It's going to really help me tailor today's presentation to your needs. And we'll give folks about a minute or two to jump on in here, and then we will get started. Denmark, cool. And Cyprus, awesome. We got Denmark, Cyprus, Miami, London. Clear sound in the UK, good to hear. Dallas, Texas. Boring here, so going to Seattle next. You know what it's not boring about Dallas, Vic? Cheap land. Okay, that's what's not boring about Dallas. I'm in Toronto, where it costs you your firstborn to get a piece of land. So Texas is a different story. But I hear you. Seattle's a great place as well. Atlanta, Gerardo, welcome. Pasadena, California. Anybody from California, I'll tell you right now, we can't be friends. I'm sorry. The weather's just too nice and y'all are just too relaxed for me to be friends with you. So I respect you, but we can't be friends. You're from California. Okay. Let's just put it that way. Minneapolis. We can be friends because you got terrible weather just like us in Toronto. Cool. More folks in the UK. We got folks from all over the place. Tampa, Salt Lake City. Here it's beautiful out there. I haven't been to Salt Lake, but I'm an avid skier and mountain biker, and I hear that's one of the places to be. Awesome. Cool. Well, I think we got a good number of folks on here so far, and I am excited to jump in with you. So quick disclaimer, folks, I'm just on the back end of the good old fashioned seasonal flu. I was actually off pretty much all of last week nursing this flu. So my voice is a little bit hoarse and I may be prone to cough every now and then in the midst of giving this presentation to you. So I apologize for that. I assure you everything upstairs is working as we want it to. And we're going to deliver the goods here for you today on this presentation if you can withstand the hoarseness of my voice for the next few minutes. Sound good? Cool. All right. Well, let's jump in here today. First of all, thank you for joining us. I absolutely love these presentations. I love live workshops. I love getting in a room with folks and having a conversation like this. As a few kind of housekeeping notes, as we go through here today, do feel free to drop questions in as we proceed. I will be handling some questions kind of on the fly, and we'll have some time at the end here to answer questions as well. So what I'd like you to do is you're more than welcome to use the chat for comments and things like that. Or if I ask you a question to respond, I'm going to do a little bit of that throughout the presentation. But if you have a question that you want me to directly address, like a point of clarification on the material or how to apply it to yourself or your business, go ahead and use a Q&A function in Zoom. So you can all see the Q&A box at the top of your, depending on how you're looking at this, it's on the Zoom panel. There's a Q&A box. Click on that, type your question in there, and I'll be checking that frequently to make sure that everything's clear to you folks, and that if there's anything that needs further clarification, that we address it. Does that sound good? I'm also a needy presenter. So pretty often as we go through this today and over the next couple of days, I'm going to ask you questions like, does this make sense? Are we on track here? Everyone following me? And I'm actually looking for a response because no sense in proceeding if things aren't clear, right? So appreciate you jumping in here into the chat and engaging with me and letting me know that we're on track and everything is clicking and making sense for you. Cool. Awesome. Well, let's jump in. The promise for today's workshop and for this week's proceedings is how to leverage LinkedIn to generate 10 B2B consulting opportunities on LinkedIn every single month like clockwork. That is why we're all here, because you have deduced that generating 10 B2B consulting opportunities every month is going to change the game for your business. If you can generate 10 opportunities per month and you close 3 of them, we'll do the math, right? 3 times your average deal size, that's your monthly revenue when the numbers catch up. If you close 4 of them, even if you close 2 of them, for most of you who are selling higher ticket B2B consulting opportunities, and if you're not selling higher ticket B2B consulting opportunities, you should be. If your deal size is where it should be, if your pricing is where it should be, or at the very least, close to where it should be, that adds up to significant numbers. And if your deal size is where it should be and you are charging premium prices and you are value pricing your engagements, separate conversation, but an important one nonetheless, then we're talking about a really, really powerful business if you can unlock the deal flow, if you can unlock the opportunity flow available to you on LinkedIn. That's the topic of this week's workshop. Now, there's a number of disclaimers I need to make as we jump into this presentation today. Okay. First of all, we can't just jump into a discussion about LinkedIn, and we're not going to. Today's conversation is necessarily strategic. Okay. It is necessarily strategic. I'm not going to today in the first session, I'm not going to go into the tactics of how to do this on LinkedIn. That's going to happen on day 2 and 3. That's going to happen in Tuesday and Wednesday. And if you're like, okay, well, I guess I can leave here and come back. No, no, you can't, because here's my contention to you. The reason why most people fail at LinkedIn, fact, right? If you look at the number of people that are trying to get results on a platform like LinkedIn versus people that are actually getting results, the fact is most people are failing. And the reason why most people are failing is not because they fail at the tactics, not because they don't know how to put a post up on LinkedIn or send an outreach message or utilize software or use Sales Navigator. I mean, there may be issues there, absolutely. But the reason why they're failing is because they don't have an underlying strategy of how they're going to use the platform. It doesn't fit into the bigger picture. They don't have a bona fide business marketing strategy within which LinkedIn is part of the ecosystem. So to use a very tired metaphor, but one that is still very appropriate, is LinkedIn. You've heard people say probably that it's like a networking event on steroids. Who's heard that before? This is one of those questions I want an answer to. Who's heard people say LinkedIn is like a networking event on steroids? You've heard that before, right? Well, taking a tactical approach to LinkedIn is a lot like just focusing on driving to a networking event and not really thinking too much about which event to go to, what room you want to be in, what you're going to say to the people when they're in the room, what kind of people you want to be talking to, what your value proposition is, how to conduct conversations, what your call to action is going to be. Instead of doing all of that, you're so focused on getting into a room. You're so focused on the tactics to get into a room. You're so focused on the registration for the networking event. You're so focused on checking the emails, confirming your registration. You're overly focused on the tactical approaches that you miss the strategic imperative. Okay. And that's what we're going to talk about today. That's the goal of today's conversation, is to get you clear on a strategic framework for a B2B consulting business, to get you clear more specifically on how your clients buy consulting services. Because if you understand how B2B buyers purchase consulting services, we're going to understand what we need LinkedIn to do to serve that process. Okay, so that's today's conversation. Here are the next 3 days in a nutshell. Today is how clients buy consulting. That's the topic. We're not going to talk about LinkedIn today, because only when we understand how B2B buyers purchase consulting services, the process that they go through, the decisions that they make to pull the trigger on a consulting engagement, only if and when we understand that and how it applies to your business, do we have any business whatsoever having a conversation about LinkedIn and how it can serve that process. Is that clear to everybody? Do you get why the strategic framework is really important to start with? Give me a yay or a nay in the comments, and we can absolutely address that if it's not clear. Awesome. Seems like it's clear. And I beat the horse to death a couple of times, probably, right? Excellent. So let's jump in. How do clients buy consulting or professional services? That's the topic of today's conversation. I'm going to share with you here a 7-part framework that's going to help you see the decision to engage a consultant or a professional service provider from the client's perspective. The key here is all about empathy. We're going to put ourselves in the client's shoes and look at how they make decisions. Look at how they proceed through the buyer's journey. There's a reason why we call it the buyer's journey, because it's the buyer's journey. It is not the seller's journey. Okay, got a couple of quick housekeeping questions in here. How long do these sessions run each day? 90 minutes. Great question. Thank you for asking that. Should have mentioned that earlier. 90 minutes. Budget 90 minutes for the session. I'll teach and train for about 60, and we'll have about 30, give or take, for Q&A. Probably done within 90 minutes, but I budget 90 minutes. Okay. So here's the big shift I want to call to your attention. I remember when I was a wee little boy, I was just as obsessed with cars as I am today, arguably more. And every time my family decided to purchase a new vehicle, it was like Christmas. It was like the most exciting time of my life. We're buying a new car. We're buying a new car. And I love the process of going to the dealership. And I'm sure y'all remember, right? How did it used to work? You go to the dealership, you go to all the dealerships in your city, probably, right? And one after another, you go in, you walk into the showroom, you start to look around at the cars in the showroom, you wait for the salesperson to approach you. They talk to you about, what are you getting out of? What are you looking for? They get you to sit in some cars. It's got that new car smell. Then you finally sit down at their desk and they whip out these glossy brochures and they're showing you the features and the specs and they're educating. That whole song and dance. You guys remember that? You remember that? Some things were better the way they were. All right. Just love that experience. Okay. And as a kid, I loved the glossy brochures. I would make a point to get as many of those brochures from the salesperson as I could. Even if we weren't interested in the car, I collected those brochures, right? Take them home. I had a stack of brochures from all these dealerships we went to, right? And then my parents would be at the kitchen table, brochures, kind of spread out across the kitchen table, looking at the cars. What do we want? What do we like? Loved it, right? Go out for test drives. Fantastic experience. Okay. But also an experience that is reflective of the old way products were purchased and sold. That is, the buyer had the information that you needed to make a decision. It's kind of hard to even imagine that anymore, but that's how it used to be. If I was interested in this Porsche 911 here that we see on the screen, well, I don't know much about a Porsche 911 apart from if I have a friend that maybe has one or I've driven theirs or something like that. I don't know. I see them on the road, but I don't know a lot about it. What does it cost? What is the horsepower? How many does it seat? What is the cargo capacity? What is the fuel efficiency? I didn't know these things. So I had to walk into a dealership, in this case, Porsche, ask questions, talk to a sales representative, have them educate me on the car, as well as educate me on what other cars are available to me, and have a conversation with me about my budget and my price range and my needs to better match me with the appropriate car. In other words, I needed the seller to give me the information required to make a decision. Does that make sense? And it's not just cars. Okay. Before the digital age, if you needed a lawyer, to use a really simple example of, the kind of professional that pretty much every business owner needs one of, if you needed a lawyer, who did you go to? Who did you ask? You went to your network. You went to your accountant probably, or some other business owner that you might know. You say, hey, do you have a good lawyer? Okay. And they give you 2 or 3 good options. You go and you talk to them. The seller had the information that you needed to make a decision. You didn't have the information on your own. Make sense? Fast forward to today. My most recent vehicle purchase, and unfortunately, or depends on who you ask, my vehicle purchases are far too frequent these days. My wife would argue. I can't stay in a car for very long. My most recent purchase or lease, in this case, is a BMW X7 for my wife. And I didn't set foot in a dealership until I knew exactly which car I wanted, right down to the spec, the model, the color. I knew exactly how much it costs. I knew the very specific configuration that I wanted in that vehicle. I had already compared and contrasted it with every other competitor in its class. I'd watched enough YouTube videos to basically make a test drive irrelevant. I still test drove it, but I'd basically seen everything there was to know about the car. And I walked into the dealership, and the sales representative was, pleasant as could be, but was basically an order taker. I wasn't looking for education. Wasn't looking for information. I didn't need him for anything. All I needed him to do was take an order and give me a good price. And that, in a nutshell, is the epitome of how products and services are sold today, which is in a line. Professional services in particular are bought, not sold. This is true for everything. We're going to focus on consulting and professional services today, and we're going to share with you a very specific framework for consulting and professional services. But actually, this sentence, this statement, this contention here, you could say products and services are bought, not sold. They used to be sold. The car salesman used to have to sell you a car. He would try to sell you a car. He would educate you and persuade you on a car. Now, they all know, by the way, that that's not how the process works anymore. Customers are making their own decisions on their own terms because they have data. And that's the shift. The balance of power has shifted from seller to buyer because the seller used to use the information that you required to make a decision over your head. You had to go to them to get the information. You had to go to them to get the data. You had to go to them to get the glossy brochure with all the specs. You don't have to go to them for anything anymore. Everything is available. Everything is accessible. All the data that you need, whether it's purchasing a car or purchasing a very expensive ERP system or purchasing a culture development solution or recruit, whatever it may be, there's tons of data available, far more than there used to be. And what happens now is the buyer has become empowered. The buyer no longer needs you for information. The buyer can get information on their own. And as a result, they've taken control over the buying process. Hence my earlier comment, we call it the buyer's journey for a reason. It's not the seller's journey. It's the buyer's journey. And this is a key contention that I'm making here today, upon which everything else we're going to talk about today and in this workshop is based, is that professional services are bought, not sold. Therefore, the question is not, how do I sell more stuff? The question is not, how do I sell more consulting services? How do I sell more professional services? The question is, how do I facilitate more buying? How do I enable my perfect clients, my ideal customers to buy from me? How do I facilitate their journey and their process in a way that leads to more transactions and more revenue for me? That is the question. Everybody with me? Just making sense? Anything unclear at this stage? Great. So with that said, the meat of today's conversation is, I want to take you through a very specific applied framework for understanding how do B2B decision makers make buying decisions. Now, the context of today's conversation is consulting professional services, but actually this framework can apply to pretty much any B2B decision. But as we go through it, I want you to be thinking about and asking questions with regards to how does it apply to your offer in particular. So here's the framework. We call it the 7 keys to a buying decision. And I want you to imagine that there are 7 doors in between you and your client. Okay, you're on one end, the client is on the other end, and there are literally 7 doors separating you. And every door has a lock. Okay. And there's no way to jump over them. There's no way to bulldoze through them. You can't break the door down, although the metaphor is pretty appropriate, because the way some people sell is they try to break the doors down, right? They try to just like kick the door in and get their way through. And then what happens is the client goes, what the hell are you doing in here? Get out, right? So imagine there's 7 doors and each of the doors has a key. Okay. And your job as the seller here, again, it's not to break the door down. It's not to sell, but it's to unlock each of those doors so you can get into the room with your client and ultimately get to a buying decision. And I'm going to share with you here what the 7 keys are, and we'll go through and talk about each of them, define them for you. I want you to be thinking about, what does this mean for me? What does this look like for me? Am I doing my job here? Do I have a solution? Do I have this key in place? Am I trying to turn this key, but it's not quite working? I want you to think about where you are and then ask questions in that regard. So the first key is awareness. I.e., do they even know who you are? To make the most obvious statement of the day, clients can only hire you if they know who you are. It's pretty clear, right? If they don't know who you are, they can't hire you, right? And that's why the first key is awareness. And I want you to think about this, by the way. Think about this in terms of where you're getting stuck. Think about this in terms of bottlenecks. The 7 keys are sequential. But if you're having trouble with key 1, don't worry about key number 7. It's irrelevant. If your bottleneck is right here in awareness, worrying about key number 7 is a waste of time and resources. For those of you who have read Dr. Ellie Goldratt's incredibly important book for any business owner called The Game, or if you're familiar with the theory of constraints, you'll understand what I mean by bottleneck. Okay, the theory of constraints and bottleneck thinking entails that you identify what the biggest bottleneck is in your business, and you work tirelessly to address that bottleneck above everything else. Any time spent on a non-bottleneck issue or resource is time wasted. The same is true for the 7 keys framework. Any time spent on a key that is down the road, key 5, 6, or 7, when you've got issues with keys 1, 2, and 3, is a waste of time because you're not even there yet. You haven't earned the right to solve those problems yet. And so for many of you, awareness is the first key. They just don't know who you are. I can guarantee you that there are clients out there, depending on what you're selling, or regardless of what you're selling, there's clients out there who actively, and desperately need your help. They need somebody like you. They're probably looking for somebody like you, but they don't know who you are. And that's why awareness is the first key. They've got to know who you are in order to even, continue the conversation, even to take the next step. And so the question that I love to ask here is, for most of you, I'm assuming this is the case, and it generally is. For most of you, the vast majority of the business that you've generated to date has come from a relatively small, finite inner circle of clients, former clients, colleagues, friends, acquaintances, professional relationships who know, like, and trust you and have some level of direct experience working with you. Is that a fair statement to make? Give me a yes in the comments if that rings true for you. Most of your businesses come from that network of people that kind of know who you are. They like you, they know that you're reasonably good, and they've either hired you or they've referred business to you or whatever it may be. Yeah. So it's true for most of you. Okay. Let's say, for argument's sake, that network is 100 people strong. Okay. It doesn't matter what the number is. Let's say it's 100 people strong. Well, what would happen to your business if, apart from any other changes, we take that network from 100 people strong to 1,000 people strong? What if we just 10x'd your awareness? So instead of 100 people, there's now 1,000 people out there who know you, like you, trust you, and are able to refer business to you or hire you directly. What does that do to your business? Pretty obvious, right? Like, everything explodes, even if nothing else changes, just from awareness. Now, will you get a 10x increase in your business? Who knows? But the point is, if awareness is your bottleneck, you just don't have enough recognition. You're not aware. Your prospects aren't aware of who you are, then they're not going to be able to work with you. Okay. That's the biggest bottleneck for most of you, but it's not enough. It's not enough for me to use our previous example, know that the Porsche dealership exists and know that, the Porsche 911 is a car that exists. That's not enough for me to pull the trigger and make a $120,000 purchasing decision. It's the first key, but it's one of 7. Okay. And for most of you, again, my contention, that is right now, if you're in this room, I can tell you with a high degree of confidence, that is your biggest bottleneck. It won't be for long if you play your cards right. Your second bottleneck and the second key becomes understanding. Understanding. So here is the problem with anybody that calls themselves a management consultant. What do you do? Here's a question for you. You go into a networking event and you shake hands with somebody and they say to you, well, or you ask them rather, what do you do? And they go, well, I'm a management consultant. What's your response? Or worse, I'm a consultant. What's your response to that? You're in a conversation with somebody. What do you say to that? What does that mean? What do you consult? What does that mean? Tell me more. What kind of consultant? What do you actually do? It means nothing to anybody, right? And, if you're being polite, you're going to ask, what does that mean, right? Tell me more. But chances are you've already lost interest, right? Chances are you've already kind of written this person off as being some wandering generality that's not really worthy of a conversation, but you're being polite now because it's rude to walk away. I actually asked that question once before in a workshop like this, and somebody said, I would just walk away. And that's the honest answer, is you probably just want to walk away, but you wouldn't because it's rude. Point is, it's not conveying anything to anybody. And that's an extreme example. Maybe some of you call yourselves management consultants, maybe you don't. But the question is, how clear is it to your target market, the clients that you want to be working with, exactly what it is you do? Because that's the second bottleneck. They may be familiar with you. They may know who you are. Awareness. We know who you are. But the second question is understanding. Do we understand what you do? Is it clear? And almost counterintuitively, I find that people struggle with this. But the truth is, you want the prospect to put you into a box. And some people resist that. Oh no, I don't want to be put into a box with every other consultant, advisor, expert in my market. And that's true to a certain extent, but at this stage, you actually want them to put you into a box. Because if they can't put you into a box, they will forget who you are altogether. If they can't clearly put you into a box and label you in a positive way, then how will they recall who you are? You know, if I come across someone on LinkedIn, for example, and let's say they're I'm going to make up an example. Let's say they're a culture consultant. They help companies that are growing and scaling maintain that ingenuitive, scrappy, innovative startup culture. Okay, well, I might not need that person today, but if I can at least label them as a startup culture consultant, I can put them in a box in my mind labeled startup culture consultant, so that if I have any concerns down the road about the culture of my organization, or I have some peers who are having issues with culture, I can reach into that box, pull out their name, and remember who they are. Whereas if they call themselves something that is far more vague and unclear, like management consultant or culture consultant in more abstract terms, where there's no clear startup focus, there's no focus on innovation, they're just, I help with culture. If it's vague and generic and fairly meaningless and lacks specificity, I don't know what box to put you in. You're pretty much invisible to me. If I can't recount back to you exactly what it is that you do from your messaging, then you're pretty much invisible to me. I don't know what box to put you in. And there's like thousands of professionals on LinkedIn that I'm constantly exposed to. If I can't put you in a box, then you're invisible. You don't exist. Okay. And I can see a lot of you thinking about tactics now. We're going to get there. The thing I really want you to understand right now is it's got to be clear to them. Like within the first 10, 15 seconds of even stumbling across your profile, it's got to be really, really clear. What do you do? They don't have to understand all the details, but they've got to be able to put you in a box. So when people come across me on LinkedIn, it becomes really clear in the first 3 seconds, oh, he helps consultants build pipeline. Now, that's not enough for you to buy something. That's not enough for us to transact. That's not enough for you to even have a conversation. That's not enough for you to even take me seriously, but that's enough for you to put me in a box. And if you need to reach into that box now, you can go ahead and do so, but maybe you don't need to build pipeline right now. Not true for you because you're here, but for others, maybe they don't need to build pipeline right now. Maybe this isn't a problem that they're actively concerned about. They put me in a box, they label it marketing consultant, pipeline consultant for consultants. And when they have that problem in the future, they go, oh yeah, what was that guy's name? Ahmed. I stumbled across his stuff. Look kind of interesting. Let me reach into that box, see what was there. That's the second key, understanding. Do they understand what in the world you do? David's asking, does that mean that you need to use a term that others use rather than something unusual / memorable? The goal of the second key, David, and for others as well, understanding, is clarity. It's clarity. Okay, clarity over cleverness any day of the week. Clarity. Remember that when it comes to a stranger who doesn't know you, maybe just stumbled across your profile, is just beginning to interact with you or engage with you, they need to be, the first line of defense is, do I care about this? Like that's what, we don't think about it that way rationally all the time, but the truth is, like, when put yourself in their shoes, when you are on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on you, anywhere really, I mean, we're talking about LinkedIn today, but when you are engaging in social media, when you're engaging in media, when you're driving down the street. The subliminal, implicit, subconscious question that you're asking yourself is, should I care about this? Should I care about this? Is this for me? And so a lot of people get into trouble because they're overly cute and clever in their messaging, and they use, metaphors and, analogies and cute language, or, there's a, founder of the ABCD XYZ method. Nobody knows what that is or cares. And you're just completely lost to the client. They don't get it. They don't know if it's relevant. They can't make that decision. You're invisible to them. Okay, that's understanding. Third is relevance. Okay. So here's the truth is you're going to have a lot of people who become aware of what you do. You're going to have a lot of people who understand what you do. And you might be thinking, well, that should be enough to get me a bunch of clients, right? No, it's not. Because knowing who you are, awareness, and understanding what you do, understanding, is not the same as me deciding that I'm interested in what you do. And that is a third piece, relevance. Relevance is we are interested in what you do. This is relevant for us now. And the interesting thing about relevance is that you have little control over whether or not you are relevant to the prospect outside of your messaging. Let's use my previous example, the culture consultant for startups. Okay. So I've grown a reasonably successful organization over the past few years. We're about 20 people strong right now. I'm starting to think about culture. I've started to think about culture. It's on my mind. 2 years ago, culture was not even something I would think about, be concerned about. I was building, I was scaling. Now it's on my mind. Now I have this team of people that are responsible for executing and doing the day-to-day work that I have to manage, lead, support, and engage. I have leadership, I have managers, I have people at every level of the organization. And I've lost control, in a sense, over the culture because it's not just me and a small handful of people anymore. It's this big organization, big for me at least, right? So I may come across this, a year ago, I may have come across this startup culture consultant that helps small organizations who are growing and scaling, maintain an innovative culture. I may have come across them, but it wasn't relevant to me. Now, hopefully that consultant had reasonably good enough messaging that they wedged themselves in my mind, and I put them in a box. And I said, I don't really need this right now, but I'm going to put you in this box, and who knows, maybe I'll come back to you. And then next week, for example, I stumble onto LinkedIn, scrolling through my feed, and I see that consultant again. And they posted a piece of content, maybe it's a video, maybe it's a post, whatever it may be, on how to know when you have a culture problem in your startup. I wouldn't call it a startup anymore. How to know when you have a culture problem in your growing and scaling organization. And there's some interesting material in there that makes me realize that actually culture is a very relevant conversation for me now, not later, not next month, not next year, but now. And that if I continue to ignore culture as a strategic imperative, I'm going to suffer the consequences. In other words, this consultant was able to establish their relevance to me through their messaging. I may not have realized they were relevant, but the seller, the consultant in this case, took it upon themselves to communicate to me when I am relevant to them. And that's a big thing I want you to take away here is it's not their job to go through your buying process. And it sounds like an obvious statement I'm making, right? It's not their job to buy from you. And I'm sorry if that offends you. It is your job to pave the way for them to buy from you. So it's your job to get awareness. It's your job to convey understanding. And it's your job to establish relevance. It's your job to communicate to them, hey, if this is you, and this is what you're going through right now, and this is your pain, and this is your plight, and this is your struggle, then what I have for you is very relevant to you. You ought to pay attention to this. It's your job to communicate that. And if they don't see it, it's your failure. Like, I feel like I'm being harsh, but I'm trying to make a point. The market doesn't owe you anything. And this is coming from, frankly, we've worked with now hundreds of consultants, and I've seen it all. And I've seen my fair share of people that are like, well, I put up my LinkedIn profile and I put a post up and nobody's buying yet. What's wrong with them? I don't know what to tell you. It's just not how the market operates. It's not how markets work. The market is heartless. The market doesn't care who you are, what you do, or what you've sacrificed, or how good your value proposition is, or how smart you are, or how educated you are, or how credentialed. The market doesn't give a damn about you. You got to earn everything that you get from the market. So my point is, I want to be really, really clear when it comes to all of these keys, and we're talking about relevance right now, it's your job to establish relevance. It's your job to communicate to the marketplace when you are relevant to them, when they are in a position to buy from you, engage you, talk to you, and take you seriously. And if nobody's doing that, if nobody's raising their hand for a conversation with you, we're falling down in one of these three areas. Either they don't know who you are yet, or they don't really get what you do, or you haven't communicated that you're in fact relevant to them. And I'm beating relevance to death here because it's the hardest step. Okay. There are plenty of terrible marketers on LinkedIn. There are plenty of lazy marketers and lazy entrepreneurs and lazy consultants who think that all they need to do is do a bunch of outreach and put up some very ill-conceived, poorly executed posts, and that somehow the market is going to respond and they're going to come to them in droves. And then when they do it and they pull their little levers, right, and they press their little buttons and then nothing happens, they wonder, how could this have gone wrong? Well, because nobody thinks they're relevant to them. Nobody sees the relevance of your offer. And until you can solve for this key, this bottleneck, it's going to be a lot of crickets. Does that make sense? Everybody with me here? Too much of a rant? Is that too harsh, guys? Tell me if I hurt your feelings. I apologize. Well, I don't really, because sometimes medicine's bitter, but you need to consume it. Cool. Crispin saying, I understand your need to rant on this. And, I appreciate that, Crispin, because I also know that there's plenty of marketers who look and sound like me who are trying to tell you that all you need to do is post content and do outreach on LinkedIn, it'll rain deals. And I just believe that they are doing you a great disservice by making you feel like anytime somebody points to an easy button, oh, it's simple, it's easy. Just press this button, do this, run for the hills. Run for the hills, right? Because if it was that easy, everybody would be doing it. Everybody would be succeeding. This is not easy. Nothing that I'm teaching you today and nothing I'm going to show you over the next couple of days, none of it is easy. Let me just go ahead and make that clear. None of it is easy. And that is good. That is very good for you. Because in the famous words of Jim Rohn, do not wish it were easier, wish that you were better. Okay, do not wish it was easier, wish that you were better. If it was easy, everybody would do it. It wouldn't be worth it anymore, right? And that's what happened with LinkedIn Outreach, by the way. LinkedIn Outreach got so easy. You could just slap an automation tool on there. You could send 2,000 connection requests per month, and a monkey could pull out 10 calls. It wasn't that hard. It was volume. It was automation. It was spray and pray, but you could spray so much that even if your results were terrible, it was still pretty decent. And then everybody did it. And then what happened? The results were no longer worthwhile. The results disappeared because it was so easy. Everybody did it. The fact that LinkedIn has now constrained the amount of outreach that you can do is terrible news for the spammers. and terrible news for lazy entrepreneurs and lazy marketers and lazy consultants. And it is incredibly good news for the rest of us who understand that business is hard and we don't want it to be easy. We want it to be hard because we can overcome hard. And everybody else, the lazy ones, our lazy competition, they're going to disappear because they can't do hard. Make sense? Cool. Number 4, distinction. Distinction. So I know who you are, awareness. I get what you do. It makes sense. Maybe I need it. Maybe I don't need it. I get it. I understand. Okay. Relevance. I see now how this is relevant to me. I'm interested in what you do. This is something I'm now actively considering, thinking about, concerned about. There are problems going on in my organization that I think you might be able to help me solve. Now, the next question becomes, why you? Chances are you're not the only consultant or professional in your market. If you are, wow, good for you, right? But chances are you're not the only one in the market. There's plenty of other people just like you. And you may believe that you're a special snowflake and there's nobody just like you, and maybe you're right. But from the client's perspective, they look and sound just like you, and they make the very same claims and promises that you make. The question is now, what makes you stand out from the pack? How are you and your offer distinct? This is also your responsibility to convey. Okay, it's not enough that you're relevant to me. That might get you a conversation. Maybe. But if you're really clear about how you and your offer and your proposition are unique and distinct in the marketplace, now you're going to get a lot of conversations. So there's a thread here that I want to call out very specifically. Okay. A lot of people complain that I'm doing all this, I'm doing that and the other, I'm doing this work, I'm doing this outreach, I'm creating this content. No one's booking calls. I'm not getting meetings. And the thing I want you to understand about having conversations with prospects, booking meetings, is that for the busy CEO, for the busy business leader, for the busy decision maker, for the busy executive, for the busy department head, they don't talk to strangers unless there's a good reason to do so. I'll tell you right now, I run a very busy organization, and we're not even huge. We're like 20 people. In the grand scheme of things, we're tiny, right? But I'm a CEO and I'm busy. And I can count on my fingers the last time I took a conversation from a cold pitch. Somebody reached out via LinkedIn or via email or whatever and said, hey, can we talk? Even if their messaging was just amazing. It's happened. It's rare. More often it happens with my team and they bring them to me. The point I'm trying to make here, though, is going back to our conversation about entitlement. Nobody owes you anything. And no one is going to have a conversation with a stranger unless the case for that conversation is overwhelming. Right? The argument to have that conversation is overwhelming, which is why, by the way, directly asking for meetings and conversations in LinkedIn Messenger is pretty much a dead practice. It's foolish. It doesn't work. And you're kidding yourself if you think you can scale that. Now, we have a better approach that we're going to be teaching you this week over the next couple of days. So don't worry, it's coming, right? But the point I really want you to understand is no one talks to a stranger unless there's good reason to do so. Stranger danger, okay? Because they don't have time to waste. Therefore, it is your job to give the prospect a reason to have a conversation with you. That is, establish your relevance and your distinction. So they look at you and they go, well, this person is clearly focused in solving problems that are of concern to us. And the way that they do it, or their background, or their offer, or their proposition is sufficiently distinct that I don't know where else we can get this, we should probably talk to them. But distinction is the key to getting that conversation. Because if they look at you and they go, well, yeah, I mean, but there's, I could recall 10 more people just like them off the top of my head. Or I've heard from 10 other people that look and sound just like them. Why are they going to talk to you? I'll tell you what buyers don't have time for. They don't have time to talk to 10 different consultants. They can choose one. Nobody has time to talk to 10 different consultants so they can choose one. They want to know who the right choice is before they ever have a conversation. So when people come to us and they want to work with us and they want to join the 90-day pipeline, that may be you. Typically, the folks who engage us are the ones who've already basically decided before they get on the phone that this is the organization I want to work with. They're not looking to talk to 10 different providers. Who's got time for that? They want to talk to the right provider, and they come to us when they're good and ready. That's why distinction is so important. Does that make sense? Y'all with me? Cool. By the way, I know a lot of you are going to have some very specific questions about your market and your offer and how to approach the 7 keys from that perspective. I'll do my best to answer some of those questions today. And as we proceed, however, probably the most effective thing for you to do is to grab a call with our program advisory team and actually have a very tailored conversation about your business and how to apply all of this to your business. And that's whether or not you choose to work with us. We're happy to have that conversation. I'll speak more about that near the end of today's presentation. Christos is asking, does that apply to every market size / geography? Give me some more specifics, Christos, in the Q&A here. Like, tell me more about your specific challenge or situation, and then I'll be able to answer that question more appropriately. Cool. Let's keep going. So once I know who you are, awareness, I get what you do. I see you as relevant. I see your distinction. Now the question is, why now? Where is the urgency, right? Is there something that I need to do now, or can I kick the can forward into the future? And, when you think about your ideal avatar, your decision maker, it's not like they have one problem that's on their minds. Wouldn't that be perfect, right? If they just had one problem on their minds and it was your problem, the problem that you solve for, and that's all they're concerned about and that's all they're focused on. Well, it happens if they're very focused, but in reality, the average, B2B buyer, decision maker, committee is consumed with a whole host of problems. There's a list. And the question becomes, well, which ones do we need to solve for first? Which ones require our very limited attention now, right? The scarcest resource in any organization is not money. Actually, this is a really important point to understand. The scarcest resource in any organization is not money. It is management's attention. It is where management chooses to focus their attention. And so what that means is a lot of times you're going to get budget objections from clients, resource objections from clients. They're not really budget or resource objections. They're attention objections. Is the client has decided that this is not something worthy of their attention right now. And they're masquerading that objection as a budget objection. But it's not really money. It's their attention. So with urgency, our job here is to convey the urgency of the problem that they're facing and to right size the problem that you solve for on management's agenda. Now, the thing I really want you to understand here is you only want to sell to clients for whom the problem that you solve is top of their agenda. Okay. You only want to sell to clients for whom the problem that you solve is top of the agenda. That is, out of the 10 problems that are on their minds right now, your solution solves 1, 2, or 3. It's at the very top of the list. It is their most pressing problem. Why is that so important? because I don't know how you can take a number 10 problem and make it a number 1 problem. I think you've got to be a really, really good salesperson. I think you've got to be very, very good at persuasion. I think you have to be one of the most persuasive people in the business to take a number 10 order of priority and make it a number 1. Is it possible? Yes. Should you bet your business on it? No. Should you make it a practice to try to turn a number 10 order of priority into number 1? No. It's risky and it's kind of foolish. Right? Your buyer has come up with their ranking. Remember, it's the buyer's journey, not the seller's journey. They've come up with their ranking of priorities over a longer period of time than the conversation with you. And to think that you can swoop into the conversation and make them see that what they otherwise consider to be a very low order of priority is a higher order of priority is very wishful thinking. And on one hand, I applaud you for being bold. On the other hand, I wouldn't bet your business on it. So if we find that we're constantly coming across this objection that it's just not urgent enough, it's not at the top of their agenda, then easier than convincing the prospect that they should be at the top of their agenda is to pursue a market or a buyer persona for whom it is at the top of their agenda. For example, culture consultant. I'm probably not the right person to sell to right now, because I'm probably only going to really take culture more seriously. Not that I don't take it seriously, but in the sense of hiring a consultant to come in and advise me until I suffer some kind of pain with regards to culture. People leave, there's turnover. I'm knocking on wood everywhere, right? These are not problems that I want, right? But until I suffer some kind of pain, how is it going to be urgent to me? Culture is something I'm thinking about, but in terms of order of priority, it's pretty far down the list right now. You shouldn't be selling that to me. I'm the wrong person to sell to. Versus the executive or the CEO that's got a turnover problem. That's got an employee morale and engagement problem. Well, that's a whole lot more urgent. And it's much easier for you to make the case to that prospect that they should hire you. Does that make sense? Rajiv is asking, how does one determine the prospect's urgency? You ask them. So in the sales conversation, you ask them, how high of a priority is this for you? How does it rank with your other priorities? And don't get disheartened if it's not a priority for one prospect, right? But if we notice a theme, if we notice a trend that everyone that we talk to seems to be sweeping this under the rug and it's not a high priority for them, then either something's wrong with our messaging or we're going after the wrong market. Cool. Any other questions about urgency? Okay. Yeah, Tim, I see yours. Tim's asking, pain versus pleasure. How do you determine your client's number one concern, pain point, issue? Most of my clients use another company, and I need to intercept that and show them our process and results. So if you don't have clarity on your client's number one pain point or desire or issue or whatever it may be, the answer to that is a process that we call customer development. Okay. Customer development is an interview method whereby you interview your target clients, your prospects, in a non-sales environment. That is, there's no agenda to pitch or to sell. There's no solution in mind. And your job in a customer development conversation is to simply uncover the truth. What is on your mind? What does your agenda look like? What problems are you facing? How do you see those problems? Where are you dedicating your time and attention? What's working? What's not working? There's a whole number of questions. Okay. And we teach this inside the 90-day pipeline. If you don't have that clarity, getting that clarity via customer development is the most profitable thing that you could be doing right now. Cool. I'm going to keep going through the last couple of steps here real quick in the interest of time, and then we'll circle back again for more questions. Number 6 is trust. Lot of conversation about trust. A lot of things, books, resources, blogs, podcasts out there about trust, becoming the trusted advisor. And it's absolutely important, but only here. It's a step 6. Think about it, right? Now that I know who you are, I know what you do, I know that you're relevant to me, I'm interested in the offer, I see that you're unique and distinct. We've created some urgency. Now I realize that this is something that I cannot afford to ignore. I've got to do something about it now. The next question becomes, do I believe that you're going to follow through on your promises? It's not really relevant before then. Unless I'm seriously considering engaging you, trust is not really a relevant consideration. It is only relevant once I'm seriously taking the matter at hand into question and I'm evaluating your ability to deliver. Then trust is important, right? It's not that it's not important, right? But it's important in this very specific sequence. Okay. And finally, resources. Again, another one that people get stuck on, right? What about the budget? What about the resources? I've actually, I've heard sales advisors and consultants tell people that you should qualify for budget in the first conversation. And I get where that's coming from. And I think it probably works in some context, but in the context of consulting professional services, in the context of selling intangibles, that is about the dumbest advice I've ever heard. Because resources, money, price is meaningless without context. You might quote somebody, you might quote somebody in the first conversation, they come on, they go, well, what's it going to cost me to work with you? And you may say $50,000. They go, well, I don't have $50,000. And you go, okay, goodbye. And if you're a commodity, maybe that's the right thing to do, right? But if you have this conversation with them, they see the relevance, they see how they're unique and distinct. You're the only one that can deliver on the promise. They see the urgency of it. They trust your ability to deliver results. Well, all of a sudden, 50 grand ain't that much anymore. Once we have the context for price and for budget and for resources, that is why resources are the last step. Now, I'm not saying go and talk to a bunch of clients who obviously don't have a hope and a prayer to be able to afford working with you or paying your prices. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying within the scope of the demographic profile of the type of organization that you want to be working with, qualifying for and building a case for the right resource allocation is the last key, because it requires context. As long as you're dealing with decision makers by definition are the people who can bring resources to bear. But if there's no strong case to bring those resources to bear, they won't do it. We're establishing the case for that through steps 1 to 6 here. Okay. So we're up on the hour mark right now, and I'm conscious of people's time. There's some stuff here I want to go through still, and there are some questions I want to answer. But before folks hop off, I want to just make one quick interjection here. Okay. It's probably no secret to any of you that we offer a coaching, consulting, training program called the 90-Day Pipeline. And the goal of the 90-Day Pipeline, okay, is to give you the process, the tools, and the systems, train you how to use them to fill your pipeline with B2B consulting opportunities every single month like clockwork. And the specific goal is to generate 10 opportunities per month like clockwork. Okay, it's not enough to know what to do. You've got to know how to do it. You've got to apply the business strategy to your business. You got to be able to execute on it. And we spend an entire 90 days in the 90-day pipeline helping you do that. Okay. And it's probably no secret that many of you are considering that program and thinking about joining us and have questions about it, so on and so forth. So we have a very special offer for you by virtue of your attendance on this workshop. And I promise you, we don't make this offer that I'm about to make to you to anybody else that's not in this room. We've done this workshop 2 times previously. This is our 3rd time doing it live. We've done it twice. I made this offer in the previous one, and I haven't made this offer anywhere else. And you'll see why in a minute. The offer that we have for you folks right now in attendance and exclusively for you is the following. We will guarantee that you will generate 10 B2B consulting opportunities for your business through your work in the 90-day pipeline, and leave you with a process that you can rinse and repeat, execute month in and month out from here on in. That process, if you're wondering, well, what does that look like? We're going to cover that on days 2 and 3 here. That's coming. The tactical system to do what we're saying here, to fulfill on this, that's coming. But we have an offer for you where we will literally guarantee that that's going to take place, or we will spend more time with you until that happens. Okay. We are not making this offer, this guaranteed offer, to just anybody. You have to qualify for it. We have to believe that you're going to get great results. We have to believe that you're all in, you're committed to your business, you're willing to do the work, because we can't do it for you, right? We got to believe that you are the kind of person that's going to get this done and that we can help you. You might have a business or an offer where we can't help you. We will tell you that. Okay. I only have permission from our client success team. They're the real bosses here, not me, to make this offer to a very small number of people. Okay. That's why I'm only making it here live with you. So if you're interested in pursuing that offer, you're interested in the guaranteed offer to build your pipeline in 90 days, and you want to have a conversation with us about whether or not you qualify for it and how that works, you can go ahead and grab a call with our team using the link I'm going to paste right into the chat right now. There's the link. If you use that link, we will know that you specifically came from this workshop. Okay. And we'll know that you're responding to this offer. And then you'll have a chat with our program advisory team. And the most important thing is, first of all, tell us more about your business. Tell us who you are, what you do, what you've done up until now, where the struggle is, where the pain point is. And then the assessment that they'll make with you is, can we even help you? I don't know, first of all, right? They're going to make that assessment with you. Can we help you? If we can help you, is the guarantee offer an offer that we can make to you, or is there something else that we can do? That's a conversation to have with them. I will tell you this. The reason I'm making this offer to you today, and I'll reiterate it again tomorrow and Thursday, because there's people here, or Wednesday rather, there's people here that'll be there that aren't here today. The reason I'm telling you about this now is because our team's calendar is already pretty much booked out for the week. I believe we're booking on Thursday at this stage. And so we're only making this offer to you until the end of the month. This is good until October 31st. So if it's something that you want to consider, but there's still questions, right? You want to attend day 2 and 3, get more detail on the systems. Obviously that goes without saying. I would go ahead and grab your call right now. Probably going to be booking in for Thursday at this stage, maybe even Friday. You have it on the calendar. You attend the workshop next couple of days, have a chat with your program advisor, see if it makes sense. But if you're interested, you want to avail yourself of this offer, it expires October 31st. Go ahead and grab a call right now. Go to that link, book in your time. That way we have it locked on the calendar. After the workshop is done, you have that conversation. We see what makes sense. Does that sound good? Am I clear on that? Tim's saying maybe my interconnection, not able to load the page. Try again. Looks like it's working fine for me. Can anybody else confirm for me that the link's working? Yeah. Brian, Corey, cool. Yeah. So that's it. Go ahead, grab a slot if it makes sense to you. If you have any questions about 90-day pipeline, I'm also happy to answer them here or on the next couple of days workshops. That's fair game too. With that said, let me circle back here and bring our presentation home. Cool. These are the 7 keys to a buying decision for a B2B buyer. Okay. And you might look at this and go, well, geez, man, that's a lot of stuff. And I hear you. It's a lot of stuff. Okay. But here's the opportunity. When we think about marketing, marketing, unfortunately, a word that's been used and abused by some very unscrupulous people who have attempted to really demean marketing and its role in an organization. It's something that's very simple and tactical. But marketing done well delivers on the first 4 keys for you. Marketing establishes awareness. Marketing establishes understanding, relevance, and distinction. That is the marketing machine that you build and that we would help you build inside the 90-day pipeline. And the machine that we're going to show you. We're going to show you the roadmap for this on days 2 and 3. Right. So don't worry. I understand this is a bit of a cliffhanger. It's like, well, yeah, but how, Ahmed? I got you. It's coming days 2 and 3. Right. That marketing system, what we call LinkedIn leverage, is designed to execute on steps 1, 2, 3, and 4 to turn those 4 keys for you so that you can focus your very scarce time, attention, and energy on keys 5, 6, and 7 in the sales conversation. In larger organizations, you have departments, you have marketing, you have sales. And my team, my department, my organization, we have departments. We have marketing, we have sales. Marketing is responsible for generating opportunity. Sales is responsible for turning that opportunity into revenue, right? Sometimes it's hard to see and decipher what the lines are when you're smaller business, smaller organization, maybe a solo shop, but the line still exists. You still have to think about it in those two categories. You still have to wear those two hats. There's marketing and there's sales. And the role of marketing in the 7 keys is to turn keys 1 to 4. The role of sales is to turn keys 5 to 7. And the opportunity that we have here today, and that we're going to show you this week, is how to turn keys 1 to 4 at scale. So you're not spending a lot of time on it. You're not, spending a lot of energy turning keys 1 to 4, but you have a marketing machine and a system that just works like clockwork. And it's turning keys 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the prospects who are a good fit to work with you. And then they're raising their hand and they're telling you that they want to have a conversation with you. So you can turn keys 5, 6, and 7 in the sales process. Now, I should say this: keys 5, 6, and 7, that's the sales process. We're not covering that on this workshop. We absolutely cover that and give you a framework and support you on that in the 90-day pipeline. But this week's workshop, LinkedIn Leverage, is specifically about turning keys 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is, as we talked about earlier, likely the largest bottleneck for all of you. Make sense? Joshua, I see your question. I'm going to get to that right in a minute here. Okay. I probably don't need to spend a lot of time here today with you folks talking about why LinkedIn. I assume that that's self-evident and that's probably why you're here. But I will spend a minute here just articulating that if you are selling B2B, if you're not, you shouldn't be here. We'll give you a refund, right? You should be selling B2B if you're here. If you are selling B2B, there's no better place for you to focus your marketing efforts than LinkedIn. That's where the buyers are. That's where we can build a list of them. That's where we can positively engage them. That's where we can influence their decision-making. That's where we can get them to raise their hand. And I'm not going to go through these, but there's a bunch of data to support just how valuable LinkedIn is, both in terms of your ability to discover the right people and your ability to influence their purchasing decisions. Cool. All right. So let's jump into open Q&A. Whatever you have as far as today's material, 90-day pipeline, or frankly, overall, I got about 15 minutes in the calendar here left. Whatever you've got, I'm happy to address. And I will go through the questions that we have in the Q&A first, while the rest of you are typing in your questions. I'm happy to address them. Joshua is saying, how deeply do the client success reps need to understand our unique offering in order to improve their ability to help build a marketing machine? I assume you're talking about our reps for the 90-day pipeline, Joshua. If so, they're not going to understand it as well as you are, but we need to be able to see that our system, our approach is going to work for your market. So there's definitely going to be some examination required there. And as long as they're confident, and most importantly, you're confident. We want, for people that work with us, it's not enough for us to be confident in your results. That's not sufficient. We want you to be confident in your results with this system. And unless and until you believe that this is going to work for you, we don't want you to do it. I'm not in the business of trying to sell to people that don't believe that they can get results with the approaches that we have here. We eat our own dog food, right? Professional services are bought, not sold. We're not going to try to sell you something that you don't believe is going to work. Our job is to, and that's part of what we're doing here today, by the way. Why are we doing this live workshop? I am showing you the system so you can make an informed decision and judgment for yourself as to whether it's going to work for you and it's a good fit for you. And if it is, we're happy to have that conversation. Paul's asking, what is the program price range or payment plans? Paul, for the reasons that we mentioned earlier, resources are key number 7. There's a few different ways that we can work together and packages. It would be a disservice of me to share with you what those are here today because it lacks context. We first have to assess whether we can help you, whether you believe this is the right fit for you. And if it is, our team will be happy to share with you what the investment is to work with us. Ikena asking, how does your program go about helping businesses specialize both horizontally and vertically? This has been one of our toughest challenges, seeing as our offering, data analytics, is so applicable across multiple industries. That is the 80-20 of what we do, Ikena. Apologies, I can feel my voice going. So positioning, which is what you're referring to, Ikena, that is determining what market to play in and how to message your offering to that market, is the 80-20 of what we do. So it's funny because we're going to show you like the very tactical LinkedIn system over the next couple of days, but actually the most important piece is the positioning, what we call power positioning. So making that determination between horizontal, vertical, a combination of both, and there's a few different playbooks within that we would look at. That's the 80-20 of what we do. That is the most important piece for any organization. And so if that's been your struggle, that's precisely where you need to be. David's asking, should awareness focus on niche rather than broad market? For example, all effort on 10 prospects rather than spread across 100 targets. Good question, David. So when we choose markets, we want to choose markets that are big. Okay. We want to choose markets that are big. And the reason for that is because with any given market, only about 1 to 3% of the market is in a buying position at a given point in time. Right? The vast majority of any market, this is true for any market, is not in a buying position. Only 1 to 3% are actually in a buying position. So if the market is not big enough, there simply is not a sufficient number of people who are actively in a buying position that you could reasonably reach to be able to drive your business. So when it comes to choosing a market, we want big markets with lots of opportunity, lots of demand. Okay. Now, if you're asking about, should you focus your outreach on a very small list, for example, 10 prospects instead of 100? No, that would not be wise. And here's why, because we don't know for those 10 prospects, let's say we want to focus on 10, we don't actually know if the problem that you solve is top of their agenda. We don't know if the timing is right. We don't know if they have urgency. And so we want to be broad in our outreach and our awareness so that we can bring in as many people as possible into your sphere of influence, into your awareness circle, so that they can come to a decision on their own whether or not the timing is right and there's relevancy. And they'll raise their hand and they'll engage you accordingly. And again, what we're going to cover the next couple of days here is going to help you see how to do that exactly. Crispin, saw your note. Appreciate the kind words. Ashfaq, if my offer applies to small businesses with 10 to 30 employees, then should I niche down with power positioning? Yeah, that is not a market. I don't mean that like in like a demeaning way, Ashfaq. I appreciate your question, but small businesses with 10 to 30 employees, that is so broad and so generic that it's not meaningful to anybody. Like if somebody came to me and said, oh, I specialize, like, cause that's me, small business, 10 to 30 employees, that's me, right? But I would not identify with the language that you're using. Do I mean like choose an industry? Possibly. So that's, Ikena's question about vertical versus horizontal. That's what that's referring to. Choosing an industry would be an example of vertical positioning. Yeah, that can work, and that can work really, really, really well. Depending on your offer, horizontal could work as well, where you have another, you have a problem focus instead of an industry focus. And a combination of the two is typically the most powerful approach. Cool. Looking through the Q&A box here now, folks. Derek's asking, in your experience, have you seen the 7 keys work across business entity and size, i.e. startups, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, SMBs, enterprise? Is decision-making similar enough across org size? Really good question, Derek. So in a larger organization, I'll pull up the framework here as a visual. In a larger organization, these steps are going to be more pronounced. And even the people that you're going to deal with at every step of the way are going to be different. The average B2B committee is like 5 to 8 people, right? So the fundamental steps that they go through and the keys that you have to turn are the same. It's just with a larger, more complex organization, it takes longer and there's more people involved, Whereas with a smaller organization or a startup or solo business, it's going to be a shorter amount of time and it's all consolidated within one decision maker, which makes it easier. But it's still the same fundamental process, just at different scales of people and time, if that makes sense, Derek. Paul, is there a price reduction for the special offer? No, there isn't. Chris, what have you found is the greatest benefit to LinkedIn versus Instagram and YouTube leads? Targetability, right? The challenge is if you're if you're selling B2B, it's really hard to target B2B on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook with advertising, for example. It's really, really hard to target B2B. It's easier for somebody like me who, we target obviously independent consultants, consulting firms. That's doable, right? Because that's a fairly like small B2B market. But if you're selling like big B2B, it's impossible. Not impossible, very challenging and very expensive. Whereas on LinkedIn, you can build a list of them by name. You can build a list of the specific prospects that you want to be engaging with and working with by name and by company and by organization, which is incredibly powerful. And that's the argument for LinkedIn. If you're selling to more like a consumer market or a small B2B market, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram advertising can absolutely work. But if you're selling B2B, like big B2B, LinkedIn is the holy grail. Cool. I think I've hit everything in the Q&A box. Yeah. Yeah, I think I've hit everything. Is there anything I haven't hit here, folks? Any other questions you guys have, either in the Q&A box or in the chat? Let me know. I'm looking at both. Oh, Sean, where would you sell the restaurant owners? The restaurant owners are tricky. We've had clients that have had a lot of good success on LinkedIn targeting multiple restaurant chains, right? So not individual mom and pop shops, because again, they're not really on LinkedIn. That's not their game, right? But when you're targeting larger chains of restaurants where they have a head office, i.e. they have people that are, sitting at desks, right? They tend to be more active on LinkedIn and you'll do well in that market. And certainly larger chains, absolutely you'll do well. Smaller independent owned restaurants, LinkedIn's not going to be a good play. Advertising on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube is probably the better play there. Cool. Yeah, I'm getting some clarifying questions about the guarantee. Guarantee is very simple. You will generate 10 B2B consulting opportunities for your business. And if you don't, we will spend more time with you until you do. Tim says, I'm selling services for B2B, not a high ticket item. Only long-term clients is the goal, not one and done. 10 clients may not be enough. Am I in the wrong room or will I learn more over the next 2 days? How many clients do you need, Tim? We're talking about 10 opportunities per month, right? Within which you should be closing 3 to 5 when everything is dialed. So is 3 to 5 new clients a month not enough for you? If it isn't, then wrong room. But I wonder if there's an opportunity to talk about price point and packaging so that you can generate more revenue from the clients that you have right now. Hundreds, I have a very high close rate, may not be. So I don't know, Tim, like there's some stuff I need to learn about your business and your goals. There's like a very contextual conversation about the bigger picture here. I would hop on next couple of days. Yeah, grab a call with the team. If it's not a good fit, the team will tell you right away. But generally, most of our clients are charging anywhere from $10 to $500,000 for their services. And for them, 3 to 5 clients is plenty. If you need to scale far beyond that, then yeah, this is not going to be a great fit. Joshua, my offering is something that is vulnerable for potential clients' experience. I will reveal their inner fears. I need to find a way to approach my offering without making them feel like I'm there to fix them or make them wrong. This work gets applied to their content creation process. I need to find out a way to push myself without scaring people. Yeah. Interesting. What's your offer in a nutshell, Joshua? Just give me like the 1 or 2 bullets on what it is. What do you sell? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting because our offer is very similar. Like the truth is, and this is a terrible marketing pitch, I'm going to tell you the truth because you're all smart, right? The truth is, if you join the 90-day pipeline, we're going to cut your business open and we're going to spill out all the guts and we're going to question everything you thought to be true. And we're going to question all the assumptions that you've made. And we're going to question what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it and why it matters and what your goals are, what's important to you. And it is like invasive surgery. And I'm telling you the truth. That's what it is. It's, the thing that we hear from clients most often is, this has been the hardest thing I've ever done, but the best thing I've ever done. So apart from, the last 15 seconds, you're not going to hear me talk about that a whole lot, at least in the marketing. Now, when you talk to one of our program advisors and when they think that you're a good fit and that we can help you, they will have that conversation with you. They will tell you it takes hard work. They will tell you there's going to be some demons to slay. They will tell you it's not a walk in the park. You're going to get imposter syndrome. You're going to get anxious. You're going to get this. They will tell you, right? But we're having that conversation typically down funnel. I just spoiled it for you. It's happening down funnel when somebody's pretty serious, right? Because we don't want to scare them away right at the beginning. And if you're on this call with me, I don't consider it to be right at the beginning. Right now, we've earned the right to have this conversation. But I'm not going to put on my advertising, hey, this is the hardest thing you've ever done, and we're going to cut your business open. It's going to be like, I'm not going to say that. We're going to scare people away. But in the right time and place, you can introduce the level of seriousness that's required here. And that's going to attract the right people to you. Like when we say that, like even just now, when I said that to you, there are people in this room who are like, I don't want that. I want an easy button. I want them to go as far away as possible. No offense to you. I'm sure you're a good person, but you're not our people. And the people that will respond to what I just said with, well, that makes a lot of sense and I need something like that, they just got a whole lot closer to working with us. Does that help, Joshua? Great question. Cool. Awesome. It makes me trust you more. And it wasn't a strategy, right? But that is a reality of it. Is it does. When we're forthright with people about what it's going to take, then they trust you, right? Nobody wants to be lied to or wants to have the wool. What's the expression? The wool over their eyes. I'm not feeling well. All right. I'm not going to nail all the lines today. Cool. All right, folks. Any other questions before we hop off today? We're back on again, by the way, tomorrow, 1 p.m. Looking forward to see you there. And we'll jump into the real mechanics and the tactics of the system. Any other last minute questions here before I hop off and let you get on? Wool over your eyes. Thank you, Tim. That was a simple one. Just lost the handle on it. Ashfaq is asking, does the process of power position my offer to get a full annual payment versus monthly recurring? It can. Yeah, absolutely. It can. Doesn't have to. Some people like monthly recurring payments. If you want people to pay upfront annually, absolutely. What power positioning does is it tilts the laws of supply and demand to work in your favor. So we go to markets with high demand and we constrain the supply by drawing out the uniqueness and the distinction of your offer such that they don't know where else to go but to you. And if they don't know where else to go but to you, and you have an annual payment option, and that's how you do business, then they're going to pay you whatever it is that you ask for because you're the only option. So yes. Yeah. Vic, you got one in Q&A. Taking a look here. Vic saying, I came to know you through YouTube ads, not LinkedIn. Do you also do clients through YouTube? So we are everywhere now, right? So we started on LinkedIn, right? That was our main channel on LinkedIn. And then we expanded to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. So we're on all the platforms now. What we teach in terms of the strategy that we teach to our clients, including this workshop and in the 90-day pipeline, is 100% focused on LinkedIn. Because if you're selling larger ticket B2B consulting and service packages, LinkedIn is where you should be playing. We only went beyond LinkedIn when we went to a level of scale that required it. So we do 30 to 40 deals per month, right? It's really hard to do that via LinkedIn, right? You 3 to 5 deals a month on LinkedIn, absolutely. 30 to 40 deals, you need paid advertising, you need scale, you need cross-channel marketing. And that's what we do now, but that's years in the making. Does that make sense, Vic? Awesome. We're up on time, folks. Real pleasure today. Appreciate y'all coming out and asking some really good questions and your engagement. I'm looking forward to more of that over the next couple of days. We will see you here again tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. Have a good one.